are all one, and we are all headed to this point, which is the closing of the cycle. If we go back and see where this cycle began at 3113 BC, you can go look at standard history books or standard timelines, and very often you'll see something like history began circa 3100 BC. You find that, for instance, the current Hindu Kali Yuga began, I believe, February 17th by current standard of 3104. That's supposedly when Krishna disincarnated. That's only some 9 years or 11 years short of the 3113. Or you find first city in history, Uruk, circa 3100 BC. Or you'll find first Egyptian dynasty, circa 3100 BC. Well, it's clear that in the Mayan computation, that what we call the cycle of human history, this cycle that we're all living in, this 5,000-year accretions of cultural data, of habits, of biases, of prejudices, of nationalisms, that whole process was engendered by some type of cosmic event, August 13th, 3113 BC. And that this cycle, that everything that we refer to as world history, as it's usually called, which is the history of human civilization since Mesopotamia, since it began in Mesopotamia and Egypt, that this cycle of history, that cycle of history is drawing to a conclusion. That's not hard to see when you turn on the television or read the newspaper. It's the first city in the world, as it's called, Uruk is the name, is the root word of the word Iraq. So the history of civilization is committing its own suicide precisely where it began. It's like the Ouroboros, the alchemical serpent that comes back and bites its tail, okay? So that the beginning and the end are met. And in the alchemical allegory, when the Ouroboros, the serpent that bites its own tail, when it bites its tail, it releases the poison that heals itself. So right now, even though it looks really ugly, that what's happening is we're releasing the poison, all the toxins, all the poisons, all the karmic toxins of the human race are coming out. And it's a time in which we are being asked to give up our provincialisms, give up our prejudices, give up our biases, give up our allegiances to all the cultural conditioned factors that have, quote unquote, made us what we are today. Because what we are today, basically speaking, is a sorry species. That we don't know how to live in harmony. We don't know how to create peace. We prefer the idea of some type of military action as a form of peacekeeping. We're living in a world of upside-down values, what the Hopi call the Kuyanaskatsi, the world in reverse, the upside-down world. And that's because this world is coming very rapidly to an end. The values that have sustained civilization no longer have any real currency, that we cannot expect any longer solutions to be coming from the system that sustains itself by these values. So it's a perception that's increasingly sinking into the human race that this ain't working anymore, that this has run out of steam, that we actually are living in a world of chaos, that this chaotic world is run and dominated by values that drive us deeper and deeper into a despiritualized materialism that, to quote Allen Ginsberg, the soulless Moloch is what rules the world, just this blind materialistic force. And that when you end up with a planetary civilization, the Earth civilization, dominated purely by materialistic values, by a system of values which is thoroughly hypocritical, that then you've come to the end of the road. It's not just the end of the road of one civilization, but of the planetary civilization itself. It's important to become utterly disillusioned if you really want to become enlightened. Just totally disillusioned. Don't hold on to anything. You know, I ceased to be a human being. Why? Because I needed to see clearly. I saw that if you keep identifying being a human being, all human beings are encrusted with egoic biases of an unconscious nature, an unexamined nature. And we have to rise above every single egoic bias, every single acquired cultural bias, if we really want to see clearly and to survive what's ahead of us. So we have a lot of signs that are very clear that everything is changing rapidly, and of course, when something comes to an end, you have to kind of draw back and see, wow, this is a planetary phenomenon. This body that we have called civilization is actually now in a state of decomposition. It's literally decomposing. Some parts of it seem to be like in a dying person, you know, a huge immune system comes and tries to battle at one point, but no matter how hard it battles, all sorts of other things come up and keep striking it in other different places. So fighting back isn't going to do the trick. Letting go will. And that this is a sign, this entropy of this particular civilization is a sign that the ground is being cleared, that the karma is being burned away and the ground is being cleared for the advent of a new cosmic order. It's very striking when you look at the crop circles. You don't see chaotic crop circles usually. Very few. What's distinguished about the crop circles is the high degree of order, of symmetry, of pattern, of a sense of this is a telepathic imprinting of cosmic order from a higher spiritual dimension of reality that is leaving us these messages saying, this you could do yourselves if you released your minds from chaos. This you could do yourselves if you let go of all your beliefs that actually keep perpetrating the cosmic chaos on Earth. This you could do yourself if you let yourself enter into a new cosmic order of reality. Everything is being cleared away. We have to be prepared. We have to be spiritually prepared, and we have to begin to prepare ourselves by making our consciousness cosmic, by moving in the direction of cosmic consciousness. We have to let go of values like real estate. We have to let go of all the consumerism values. We have to let go of values of nationalism. We have to become complete cosmic citizens if we want to free our minds and enter into the galactic, cosmic, telepathic ocean of archetypal cosmic consciousness. We have to free our minds. And so how did how to find some kind of clue or key to help return humanity to a condition of cosmic consciousness, a condition of cosmic values where we realized our oneness with the universe. In that process, I began very early with the study of what's called the Mayan calendar, the Mayan mathematics, the Mayan astronomical system as such. And I knew that this was a vital key. Through the years, I met different people who pointed me in different ways, showed me some signs, led me to the prophecies. The prophecy of 1987 of the harmonic convergence, which I was instrumental in initiating. What was that prophecy about? At one level it said 144,000 sun dancers need to be awakened and reactivate the sacred sites of the world. Why? Because this was the beginning of the closing of the cycle. This was the entry into the time of prophecy. This is, the prophecy said that the human beings now have to make a choice. The choice is to leave the present civilization of global materialism and enter into living once again in tune and in harmony with the cycles of universal nature. And that if humanity was able to do this, then 2012 would bring heaven on earth. And if not, then it would see the destruction of planet Earth. Well, as I said, there's many factors today, right now, that you can see the handwriting on the wall. But there's also factors that say, well, actually, there's enough of us who, if we made an extra effort, could make the difference. But to make an extra effort means you have to do something. You have to shift. Like I said, we have to give up a lot of stuff. We have to it's like going into, it's like preparing for death. When you prepare for death, you know there's not too much you can take with you except for a clean conscience. So it's very much like that where now we should be thinking, okay, this body of the old civilization is dying. I am part of that body. To prepare for that death and to make my Bardo passage of a happy one, I better begin to clear my karma right now. I'd better begin to prepare right now for how I make a safe Bardo passage. After the harmonic convergence, I knew what the prophecy said. And I wondered, well, what's the key to switching the mental frequency of the human race? What's the key to making a big shift so that we can prepare a positive mental field that's elevating its consciousness in the direction of absolute galactic culture and cosmic awareness? Well, from my study of the Mayan calendar, in 1989, I made a discovery that the reason why the Mayan calendar was so sophisticated, and it's not, when we say Mayan calendar, Mayans used many different calendars. They had a totally different sense of time than we do. Our sense of time is locked into something called the clock and the Gregorian calendar. We take these as second nature. They're so embedded in our consciousness. It's very difficult for us to think of time apart from a clock or the Gregorian calendar. Totally, 100%. Where did that agreed upon fiction come from? Originally it came from Julius Caesar. And then it was adopted by the church at the Council of Nicaea in 325 after Christ. And then reformed by Pope Gregory XIII in 1582, when European dominance of the world was paramount, and so the Europeans were able to, the church, I should say, through the European conquest of the world, was able to foist this calendar on the rest of the world as the world standard. But it's just an arbitrary fiction. It has actually no cosmic meaning. November is the 11th month, and it means 9. December is the 12th month, and it means 10. And January is the first month, it means doorway, and February is the second month, and it means entrails for divination. We don't know anything, virtually speaking, about this system of time that we lock ourselves into, and yet we have a hard time giving it up. We don't, you know what dogma is? Dogma is when you accept something that you never questioned. So, one of the principal dogmas in the world is this calendar and also this clock. When you accept something that you never questioned, and it happens to be the instrument that shapes your whole sense of time. And you say, in this culture, you say July 4th, and everybody knows what that means. That's because the calendar is a macro programming device. All of the programming of the society and the culture that uses the calendar is in that calendar. So it's a way in which we create a what's called an annual feedback loop that keeps us entrained in a particular perception of reality. And we can't even see that. We're, as I've said very often, we're like the goldfish in the water. They don't know the water's dirty. They're just swimming around in it. And that's the same with this calendar. We can't see it. We can't see how it shapes all of our perceptions. Now it's going to be Thanksgiving, and everyone's thinking turkey, and then it's going to be Christmas, then it's going to be New Year's. So these are all these, and then it starts over. What starts over again? What starts over again on January 1st? They say, well, it's not going to be 2004 anymore, it's going to be 2005. But what is it that starts over? It's just this program in your mind. It's an arbitrary mental program. But we're all so embedded in it, we don't even know it. We just accept it. It takes us along with it. And it just keeps doing its little cartwheels. And we don't know what else it programs. I was doing some research, and I found out that the Gregorian calendar actually runs in 28-year cycles. 28 is a very interesting number. It shows that even the Gregorian calendar operates according to cosmic law. Every 28 years, no matter where you slice it, there's always going to be 7 leap years. 7's another key number. So those are the 2 key numbers actually we want to be looking at, 7 and 28. But the Gregorian calendar runs in 28-year cycles. That means, like, you can imagine it as like a big phonograph record. We can remember the old days when we had phonograph records, or maybe a DVD spinning rapidly. But the phonograph record with all the grooves cut in it. And all the grooves would be all the days in a 28-year cycle. And then, but as it plays, new events get overlaid in those grooves, and so each of those grooves becomes an accretion of different types of events. But it's interesting what kinds of events get repeated every 28 years. The 9/11 happened in the year 2001. And I thought, okay, if this thing goes in 28-year cycles, and that's the major defining event so far of our time, at least this recent period of the final stage of history. Let's go back, what happened 28 years? That was 1973. And so, okay, in 2001, the Twin Towers came down. 1973, wow, look at that, April 4th, Twin Towers dedicated. They were destined for one 28-year Gregorian calendar phonograph record cycle. That and no more. What else was programmed into this 28-year cycle? 28 years before 1973, 1945. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Is this karmic retribution? War? Terrorism? Twin Towers? Well, what happened 28 years before 1945? 1917, America enters the First World War. Russian Revolution. Let's go back another 28 years, 1889. You like towers? The Eiffel Tower, the world's tallest building, was built in 1889. You can see this program we're repeating. As a 2001, we get this. Who wants another 28-year cycle of this? What will the world be like in 2029? The Pentagon thinks it'll take probably that long to fight its current war. Well, we stick with that, there won't be too much left to fight for when we get to 2029. What happens if you change the program? The word calendar is a Latin word, and it comes from the word calends. Calends was in the Julian calendar. Calends is always the first day of the month, and calends means account book. It's when you pay your bills. So a calendar is a schedule for paying your bills. So that's not a really cosmic concept. But you can see why we live, according to this calendar, why we live by the ruthless philosophy, time is money. That's the philosophy of this calendar. Time is money. You can see by the irregularities of it, it's an irregularity, A, of the number of days in each month, and B, the fact that the 7 days of the week and the months don't correspond either. It just short circuits you. The galactic Mayans, my people, they think that we're a very primitive race as far as our concept of time goes. That we can't think about it. We don't know why, because we don't have any order in our time. You can see that. That's a calendar. It's actually what? What does that measure? So we're the third orbit out. Our star is number 24 in the Velitropa sector. Our planet is the third one out. Then you see it like a big circle there. Okay. That's the orbit of the Earth around its local star, what we call a sun. A calendar like the Gregorian calendar is supposed to be a measure of that orbit. That's what a calendar is. So in other words, when you get to January 1st on Rose Bowl Day, that means that the Earth is roughly in the same place in its orbit as it was 365 days before. You're actually measuring the orbit of the Earth around the sun. We usually don't think about a calendar in that way, but that's what the Gregorian calendar is what's called a solar calendar because it measures the 365-day orbit. Now, when we have a standard of measure, we expect that the units are equivalent to each other and that the subunits correspond to the dominant units. In other words, the dominant units in the Gregorian calendar are the month, but the months don't correspond. 30 days have September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31 except for February, which has 28, and on leap year 29. And that's about as much as you need to know about the calendar to get it straight. But as you can see, that jingle exists because it's not straight. It's not a straight standard of measure. What does 30 and 31 days, and why are they in that irregular order? You know why August has 31 days? Because Augustus Caesar, who succeeded Julius Caesar, thought Julius named Septimus after himself, now called July. Actually, excuse me, Quintilius it was. He named Quintilius after himself. It's July, and it has 31 days. Therefore, I'm going to name Sextilius, which was then August. But let's see, August only has 30 days, said Augustus Caesar. I'm going to borrow the 29th day from February and put it on August, so it now has 31 days. So they weren't thinking of a system of measure. They were thinking of their egos. And why did Julius Caesar make this calendar anyway? To demonstrate that Rome was no longer a republic but an empire. That was his political reason for changing this making what was called the Julian calendar, the calendar we use today. Of course, on the Ides of March, he lost his life for it. And then Augustus succeeded him. But I'm saying that because a calendar as a measure of the orbit of the Earth is supposed to be a standard of measure. A standard of measure, as I said, when we have a standard of measure, we want the units of measure to be equal to each other, and we want the subunits to correspond to the larger units. Now, when you have units of measure that are 30, 31, 30, 31, 30, 30, 31, 31, etc., those don't correspond to each other. And then when you throw in that the subunit of measure is a 7-day week, with the exception of February, when it's not a leap year, the 7-day week only corresponds with February. 4 times 7 is 28. And so the 7-day week is continuously going off from the rest of the days of the month. And that's why that calendar looks like that. And you have to kind of piece that all together to figure out all the 7-day weeks. We know that there's 52 7-day weeks basically in a year. 52 times 7 is 364. Okay? If you look at this graphic again, a couple things I'd like to point out to you. The orbit of the Earth around the Sun is 585 million miles. Now, that's an interesting number because it divides perfectly by 13. 13 times 45 million is 585 million. That means that this circle, this diameter, the circumference of that's created by the orbit of the Earth around the Sun, that this divides perfectly into the number 13. Okay. If you take the number 365, the number that's closest to dividing into that perfectly is 13. 13 times 28 is 364, the same as the number of days in 52 weeks, plus 1 extra day. So if you look at the cycle, this orbit here, you can see you can divide it into 13 equal parts. Each part is 45 million miles. That means every 28 days, the Earth has gone another 45 million miles in its orbit. If you take down in the lower corner, you can see you break that down. We're traveling at the rate of 1,600,000 miles a day. We're traveling 66,666 miles an hour, 1,111 miles a minute, and 19 miles a second. That's how fast we're going. Why are we going so fast? Or why do we need cars to go fast when we're going that fast already? That's really an amazing rate of speed. And it's interesting that the time that the Earth, in any place, if you're on the equator, that in any place on the Earth, 800,000 miles is going to be day, and 800,000 miles more is going to be night. That's interesting because that's the diameter of the sun. And we say 28 days, you'll see when you look at V24.3, you see our satellite, the moon. That moon actually has a mean orbit of 28 days. Scientifically, the moon goes around the Earth 13 times in the time the Earth goes around the sun once. We have different measures of the moon. The two main measures are the synodic measure, which is new moon to new moon, which is 29.5 days. But we also have the sidereal measure, which is 27 days, and that's from the place where the moon appears at the same place in the sky. So that's really interesting. It kind of boggles your head to think about that. But there's a 27-day measure and a 29-day measure. So the mean measure of the moon, if you're out in space looking at it, the moon's going around the Earth every 28 days. It's interesting. All the ancient people knew this. Someone sent me a book recently called The Alphabet and the Ancient Calendar Signs, which was written, I think, sometime in the 60s, I guess it was. Very well-researched book, but it's very interesting. What it turns out is that, like, before we had the zodiac of 12, nearly all the cultures, the Arabian, the Hindu, the Chinese, they had what's called the 28 lunar mansions. And the 28 lunar mansions is the basis of the 28-day cycle. 28 times 13 is 364. And 13 times 28 is 364. You have, in the Mayan calendar, you have, in 1 year cycle, you have 28 13-day cycles. And then you also have 13 28-day cycles. All the ancients knew this. In fact, there was a whole other zodiac that existed before Babylon, and that was the zodiac of the 28 houses. They still have this in the Hindu Jain cosmology, and you can find this in the ancient Chinese cosmology. This was the 28, the wheel of the 28 lunar mansions. It's called, and then the Milky Way galaxy goes to the center, and you have 28 different constellations. And this is called the map of the river of heaven. And the reason for this is that 28 is very, very interesting. 28 is actually the key cosmic number because it's a factor of 7 and of 4. 4 is the number of form. If you take, and then 7, now that's the mystic number. If you take 7 and you have 7 apples, to make it simple, you go 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth one is in the center of those. There's 3 on each side. So 4 and 7. Okay? Those are the two key numbers, and the two factors of the 4 and the 7 create the 28. And all the ancients knew that the 28 was actually the lunar cycle. The Druid calendar, tree calendar, 13 months of 28 days. In South America, they have the Pachacuti calendar, 13 months of 28 days. This is the year 5514 of the Pachacuti calendar of South America, 28-day cycle. The Druid calendar, which has recently been revived, is pivoted. And each of these calendars has what's called like an equivalent of a day out of time, because there's 364 days, 52 7-day weeks meshing perfectly, 13 cycles of 28 days, and then the 365th day is what's the day out of time, okay? And you've heard that expression, the king is dead, long live the king. Well, in the ancient Druid times, the 365th day of the year, the king was tested to see if he was worthy of ruling for another year or not. And if he didn't, then he was killed. Or if he was, then he was granted renewal. In any case, it was the king is dead, long live the king. That 365th day allows for a cessation of all earthly temporal thinking and activity, a cosmic influx, and then a renewal in which perfect harmony begins again. If you turn this over where the Gregorian calendar is, you see on the other side of it, the calendar of 13 months. And you see, if you look at the Gregorian calendar, you're looking at absolute irregularity. If you look at the 13-month calendar, you're looking at absolute harmony. It may be, some people say, oh, that's too simple. But it may be that this irregular calendar, its crookedness, has programmed us to hopeless disharmony and inability to find peace. Because it's so endemic into our system that we can never arrive at harmony when you're using a standard of measure that looks like that. We program irregularity and hopeless disharmony into our system. We come to accept more and more the world of Koyaanisqatsi, the reversal and upside down of values. If there were perfect harmony, there would be no more history. History, as we have come to know it, is a function of chaos. It's a succession of empires and systems of government that still are empires, that end up in increasing forms of materialism that create total chaos. Why? Because when we live in a world of just purely materialistic values, then we are putting spiritual values in the back seat, and it's actually a spiritual universe. We are here, we are meant to evolve our mind and our spirit, and we're putting them in the back seat. Einstein said before he died, it wasn't that long after Hiroshima, he said, everything since the advent of the nuclear era has changed except for the way humans think, and because of that, we drift hopelessly toward catastrophe. What locks us into the way we think on an everyday basis is that system. If you want to begin to make a change, shift your own frequency and shift your own consciousness, then this is a very simple, absolutely simple step you can take from Chile, just a simple wall calendar, because the 28-day, 13-moon 28-day calendar is perpetual. You actually would put Hallmark out of business because this same calendar works every year. the reason Hallmark's in business is because this one changes all the time. You can't figure it out, so you need Hallmark. But actually, this is a perpetual calendar. Ultimately, when you get on this calendar, you get to a point saying, oh, we don't need a calendar at all. We've actually entered timelessness, which is where we really want to go. You can't get into timelessness when you're locked into hopeless irregularity or the mechanical clock. We haven't even talked about that. What a lot of people don't know is that there was a calendar reform movement in the early part of the 20th century that was actually taken up by the League of Nations, the predecessor to the United Nations. And the top calendar of choice to replace the Gregorian calendar was the 13-moon, 28-day calendar. It was the favorite of the International Chamber of Commerce. The International Chamber of Commerce said, hey, this will make accounting easy. This will make accounting really easy. Eastman Kodak was one of the strongest proponents of that calendar. That calendar got shot down by a strong lobby of the Vatican, of course, which is the most infested in the Gregorian calendar, because this calendar has 13 perfect months, 28 days each, 52 perfect weeks, and then one day at a time, the 365th day, which we call the Day of Peace and Culture. And the Vatican said, and that day is no day of the week at all, no day of the month, no day of the week at all. As I said, it's the time where you can have a galactic breath and then renew the cycle. It's the cosmic meaning of that. The Vatican said, if we adopt a calendar, and nearly all the calendars that were being proposed wanted to be perpetual, and wanted to keep the 7-day week, and to keep the 7-day week in a 365-day cycle and keep everything perpetual, you need to have the 365th day be no day of the week at all. The Vatican said the 7-day week was set in motion by God at the beginning of creation. And if we break the succession of the 7-day week by a day out of time, we will plunge the world into terrorism, social chaos, and war. Well, you can just see exactly where we are today. As a result of that effort, the whole calendar reform movement bogged down, and by the time, this was in the mid-1930s, and in 1939 the Second World War began, and that pretty well put an end to that. Afterwards, the status quo was even more ensconced in the old order. In 1956, the United Nations Committee on Social and Economic Thought tabled the concept of calendar reform indefinitely. In 1961, Vatican II Council said, we'll accept a calendar reform as long as it doesn't break the succession of the 7-day week and doesn't mess with the movable Easter. Easter, you know, why does Easter happen on a different day every year, every different Sunday? Because Easter falls on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox, except for when it's the same as Passover, and then it's the Sunday after that. Well, you know, we can laugh at these things because we're laughing at our own irrationality that we cop to these things. And as I said at the outset, you know, we really want to be cosmic citizens. We want to be at one with the universe. We want to attain to that state of ascension or universal transcension where we are all in the same common state of mind, that we are all feeling the same universal love, that we have all transcended all of our differences, that we've all been able to forgive absolutely everybody. That's what we want. And we have to make steps to start to get there. Upstairs, they're going, okay, do we give this gaggle a renewal or not? Have they proved themselves worthy? Can they handle not destroying a planet? Do we renew them? Do we give them an evolutionary upgrade? And if they can make of their own free will, which is how they got in this jam in the first place, if they can make of their own free will a shift in their timing frequency, maybe we'll give an upgrade. They will prove that they were able to do something voluntarily, to shift their mind without government control, without corporate mandate. Across the board, this calendar that I was showing you is being followed by people in more than 90 countries now. It's being taken up because it's a unifier across the board. Mahatma Gandhi, in 1934, writing in the Journal of Calendar Reform, said he was really behind this idea of changing the calendar. Why? Because it was a unique way of unifying people in a peaceful way to transform their world and their way of thinking. Precisely the point Einstein was making. As long as we don't take that effort to change how we think, we're not evolving. You can't evolve. We won't get that big zap unless we first make one step, an across-the-board step, and to change our frequency, to change our own perception of ourselves, to change our perception of time and how we are in the universe. From our egos and going into liberation, cosmic liberation. Of course, it just isn't going to come by following this calendar. I'm not trying to say that. But this is the way of changing your mental frame, your mindset. And that's a very fundamental change. The function of what we call a calendar is to synchronize us with our planet, with our moon, with the sun, with the galaxy, with the stars, with the cosmos, to put us in sync. You can't take it with you. All you can take with you is the best of your spiritual values. Give up the rest. Give up your attachments. And go into it. Dissolve and release. Create mind in this way. Create a new mindset. And in creating that new mindset, then know that you're being guided by a higher galactic force, that this is a perfect day to enter into a galactic state of mind, to go into a state of galactic meditation. As I said, just following this isn't going to just change your mind or your consciousness automatically. It will change your mindset. It will change your frequency. And we're straddling both worlds. That's why we give the Gregorian calendar dates. No one's going to get lost. But you do have to, if you want to begin to evolve, you have to do something to make a shift that's so fundamental. This is a really fundamental shift. After a while, you'll get to the point of saying, what do I need my watch for, and throw it into the lake. But first you have to make this shift, because this is the shift that gets you moving into conscious harmony. The whole old order has really ceased to work. That we need to, we can't just, no one likes to be a victim, no one likes to sit passively by. We want to be able to know, what do I do? How do I spiritually prepare? How do I change my mind? How do I get ready for the shift into galactic consciousness? Because we have to understand that's what's actually happening. What looks like a real mess on the TV screens is actually the ferment of the cycle of evolution wearing itself out, and in preparation there's a new cycle. Like I said, post-history is not going to be in the Gregorian calendar. No way. We're going to be, if you're going to be post-historical, you're going to be in a totally new system. You'll notice that the months, the tones, the 13 different moons, it has nothing to do with the system of months we have now, but follows a galactic cosmology. The first moon is the magnetic moon. The second moon is the lunar moon. The third moon is the electric moon. The fourth moon is the self-existing moon. That's because these follow what's called a wave spell cosmology. The wave spell is the form constant of galactic time. Magnetic moon, lunar moon, electric moon, self-existing moon, and now here we are in the overtone moon. It means that we have started the year, which the year always starts, it's correlated to July 26th, which was correlated to, that's originally some 1,000 years ago, that was the heliacal rising of Sirius, and then what follows the Great Sophic cycle, and when that Sirian cycle is completed, then we'll be back precisely at that date again, Sirius rising with the sun. So July 26th is the correlation for this, correlated to Sirius, it's galactic correlation. And so it means that now we've come down to this point in the year, the overtone moon. The overtone moon, you look on the, it says, how can I best empower myself? See, every moon has a question. Okay? So I said this is all about improving yourself in time. Okay? And so this is the, how can I best empower myself? How can I take better command of my life? One very simple step to take better command is just shift your timing frequency. Say, oh, maybe this is one of the clues I've been waiting for. Shift my timing frequency. It's the overtone moon, and then here the sixth moon is the rhythmic moon. The seventh is the resonant moon. The seventh is midway between the magnetic, the first moon, and the cosmic, the last moon. Okay. The resonant, 7 is the resonant tone. It's in the very center. I talked about 4 and 7. If you have 7 apples, 4 is in the center. If you have 13 apples, 7 is in the center, 6 on each side. Okay. So that's why in the law of time, which is a mathematical cosmology of the fourth dimension, the basic formulation of the cosmology is 4 is to 7, as 7 is to 13. 4 is the fourth apple is in the center of 7, the seventh apple is in the center of 13. 4 is to 7, as 7 is to 13. 4 times 7 is 28. 4 times 13 is 52. 13 28-day cycles. And in 13 28-day cycles, 4 times 13, 7-day weeks, 52 weeks. Everything is in that formulation. 4 is to 7, as 7 is to 13. You're dealing with cosmic standards, with galactic cosmic standards. These are not necessarily astronomically based at all. The fourth dimensional time is not astronomical time necessarily, though astronomical time is actually ultimately governed by fourth dimensional time. So the resonant tone is in the center between the magnetic, which is where everything begins. It's magnetized at the beginning. When it reaches the midpoint, you have resonant attunement. If you also look at numbers 1 to 13, 13 and 1 go together, 2 and 12, 11 and 3, 10 and 4, 9 and 5, 6 and 8, but 7 stands alone. It mirrors both directions. So you have the rhythmic tone, the rhythmic moon, the resonant moon, the galactic moon, the solar moon, the planetary moon, the spectral moon, the crystal moon, and finally the cosmic moon. The first four, magnetic, lunar, electric, and self-existing, establish the order. Self-existing is the self-existing form, 4. And then the overtone moon is in a position where you overtone the higher cycles. And then you have the rhythmic and the 6, because then you have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And you have possibility of that rhythm. And then the 7th, which is the resonant in the center. And then you have the 8th is galactic 8, the octagon. You look in the Sufi symbolism, the 8, the octagon, that's the cosmic order. Octave, okay, that's the 7 plus 1, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, 7, do, makes the octave 8, okay? That's the galactic, that creates the galaxy as the smallest unit of universal cosmic order. So the galaxies are the constituent building blocks of the universe. And then you step down from the galaxy to the sun, solar, and from the solar to the planetary, which is the 10th. The planetary is the place of manifestation. Okay. So this is, everything manifests on the planet. Everything is manifesting on this planet. All the karma of the free will zone of the Velatropa sector is now incarnate on this planet. That's why everybody's here. Everybody has shown up. Planetary manifestation. Then the 11th tone is the spectral. Once you get full manifestation, there's nothing left to do but dissolve. And when you dissolve it, then you return to the perfect form, which is the crystal. Like a crystal is, if you look at any crystal, a crystal, how did it get like that? How long has it been like that? What will change it? A crystal, unless you break it or do something like that, is impervious to change. So the 12th tone, and the meaning of 12 is the crystal. The crystal is the basis of the concept of the temple. Its complex structure, its stasis. That's why the concept of time is 12 months is static. It's a spatial concept. And that's why it creates materialism. But properly understood in the whole context, 12 is the crystal tone. The crystal is the perfect form. It's the number of the temple. Temple is the structure of cosmic order. And then once that's complete, then you go over here like this to the 13th tone, the cosmic tone. And you become absolutely cosmic. You've gone through the whole process. And the 13th tone, the 13th moon, which ends on the corresponding date of July 24th. And then the day out of time, which is corresponding July 25th. This is no day of the week, no day of the moon. It's Galactic Freedom Day. It's a release so that then the process can renew itself again in the magnetic moon and then continue the self-replicating cosmology. It's a perpetual syntropic rather than entropic cosmology. Harmony is syntropic. It only induces to greater and greater and greater levels of harmony and order. The evolution of the galaxy, the evolution of the universe is a mental, spiritual evolution, as we know. Now, all we're experiencing right now is the maximum point of the involution of the spirit in matter. The whole process is matter, the involution of the spirit and the evolution of the spirit. The spirit becomes involved in matter to the point where there's a state of almost utter amnesia and forgetfulness. And then comes the cathartic point. When the cathartic point comes, then there's that turnaround, the biting of the Ouroboros of its tail and the release of the poison, the wake up that we've run out of steam and we have to go in a new direction, that it's up to us to evolve, to spark the spirit into its next evolution, its next stage of evolution. And we can't evolve individually without all of us evolving. That's impossible. Some of us go ahead. So yes, there is something beyond that. And so, but those of us who go ahead say, it's our responsibility to come back and say, wait, Bucky Fuller said, the way that you deal with an old model of reality that isn't working anymore, you don't fight it, you build a better model. Really simple. That's the test. That's the evolutionary test. And see, this is my message. I've come a long ways. Like I said, I stopped thinking of myself as being a human because I needed to think clearly. When I stopped being a human, I remembered that I was a star traveler, just using this human body. And when I remembered I was a star traveler, then I didn't have to be conditioned by all the things that condition us. I could think without that. I could see if there's such a thing as universal reason, if there's such a thing as universal logic, if there's such a thing as universal harmony, which there is, then why aren't we going there? And if we have the opportunity to go there, why don't we take it? The first step to universal harmony is harmony in time. That's the very first step. It's the nature of my message. About 10 or 11 years ago, I realized that I had a message, that I was a messenger. I never thought that when I was in the 10th grade, that I have to go around the world and tell people, your calendar is screwed, you need a new one. You have a chance to elevate to the next stage of evolution. Where are we going? We're going to the noosphere, the mental sphere of the planet. The planet is going to develop its planetary mind and its planetary consciousness. And we're the agents. But we can't do that unless we all get in sync with universal time and universal harmony. Then when we do that, we can advance guard of us to become a telepathic battery, a geomagnetic battery. Then we're going to perform miracles. But we have to get unified. We have to get unified and in sync with universal galactic time to turn the world around. If we created the atomic bomb, what could we do positively? We created something equivalent to the atomic bomb positively. What would that be? What would that look like? Okay? We can do that. Our brain waves are synced to the electromagnetic field of this planet. But we can't sync our brain waves to the electromagnetic field until we're in sync with ourselves and ourselves are in sync with cosmic time. Then we can perform miracles. We can sync up our brainwaves with the electromagnetic field of this planet and alter positively the very look of our planet. But it all starts with a simple step. Just like that. I remember when I was a kid, I'd go to Woolworths, F.W. Woolworths, and there'd be a guy down there saying, I got a potato peeler, and you never seen a potato peeler like this. It will peel potatoes like you never seen before, and not only that, but it dices carrots. And sometimes I sit there and think, I got a calendar here. You won't believe what this is going to do for your mind. You really won't believe what it's going to do for your mind. Thank you very much.